Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about the natal chart of President Joe Biden. Now, Joe Biden was born with the Sun, Scorpio, Moon, Taurus, and Sagittarius Ascendant. Now, when you break down the Sun, Moon, Ascendant in the chart, how they integrate together, it's done very systematically. It starts out with the Sun, and in this case, the Sun Scorpio being about transforming. Then it's injected into the moon energy. Moon energy really is flavoring the sun, and this transformation can be connected with money, finances, in this case, the economy of the U.S., I would say, and the ascendant flavors this energy and shows how it's done, and it's done. Sagittarius ascendant done with a lot of exuberance, enthusiasm, optimism, and expansion. I'm sure he's planning on creating a lot more jobs for people, and see a lot of presidents have this energy anyway, regardless of astrological placements. But I would say this be even more emphasized with him, and that's almost like a perfect combination. I'd say for if you're going to transform the economy. Now, looking at his chart, first of all, looking at it from a pictorial standpoint or aspect, he does have the majority of his planets on the top half of the chart, which indicates a lot of that he's like, more gregarious uh, and extrovert as opposed to being introverted, more optimistic and pessimistic, and also I would say more objective than subjective. And the thing about it as well, and also looking at his chart, he does have, from a pictorial standpoint, he does have majority of his placements in the fourth quadrant of his chart. So it tells me that he's very much very goal aspiration oriented. He's probably very environmental. He's more about doing things that are helping really big groups and things more globally, I would say. He's probably very humanitarian and altruistic, and the fact that four of those planets, of the five planets in that fourth quadrant in his natal chart, are in Scorpio, it tells me this could be done with a lot of obsessive, fixated, and relentless energy. Now he has a balance of planets on the left and the right side of the chart. Five planets on the left side of the chart, five on the right. It tells me that he's very balanced as far as being self-reliant and independent, in contrast to being dependent on others. He probably knows when he can do things that he can do by himself. He understands that and has a good conception of that, but at the same time, it tells me that he's smart enough to know when to ask for help, when to collaborate with others on certain projects or endeavors or what have you. Now, another thing is, as far as his chart or final signature goes, that is in Scorpio, because you ascertain the chart signature, final signature in one's chart by taking what they have the majority of in terms of an element. In this case, it's water, and then the majority of in terms of the quality, which is fixed. So, final signature in the being in Scorpio. Now, I don't think, this supersedes the Sun, Moon, or Ascendant in terms of its significance or its exertion on the chart, influence on the chart. But in this case, the fact that the chart signature is in the same sign as his Sun sign, what that tells me is that it can reinforce the strong Scorpio energy. Anyway, he does have four planets in Scorpio to begin with, and then you have the chart signature in Scorpio. It tells me the chart signature in astrology is basically that overall tone or feel of the chart, and it tells me that he's very, his nature can be very relentless, sometimes obsessive, resourceful, emotionally intense, very transforming. It can be somebody, the Sun in Scorpio by itself can, of course, have the indomitable spirit, because the Sun is connected with the spirit, our will, his will, willpower can be very unbreakable, I would say, and indomitable. But you're talking about it as far as the chart signature goes. It just shows he's got a very resilient type of nature, and it's just a very his Scorpio energy is very strong, even though his ascendant, even though it's an adjacent sign and it might be conjunct, it's conjunct his sun, his ascendant is completely, I mean, different, obviously, than his sun sign, but he's actually projecting outwardly in contrast to who he truly is. And having a Sagittarius ascendant, of course, he's showing a nature outwardly that's very jocular and jovial, very optimistic and upbeat, and expansive, and a person that can be very, much more gregarious than the typical sun, than the sun in Scorpio, of course, and a person that obviously can be a lot more, of course, outgoing and more outdoorsy than the typical secretive sun in Scorpio, and this is something where looking at this as well, I think it's very very interesting. I mean, seeing his chart, because I want to talk about some things as far as trying to look at his chart. Don't mind me, people. I'm trying to see something here. A lot of this is about his as far as how his moon and his sun work, especially. I think it's very interesting how they integrate, and I think it's expressed in some of his activities. Now, the thing about it is, there was some talk about some kind of drilling review that he was involved in, and it's happening fairly recently, and that Biden it seems like he's involved in, well, I would say, very intricate and complicated, which is Scorpio, in something that's geological, and geological can be connected with Taurus, and it's done, of course, on a grand scale, which is Sagittarius. President Joe Biden has also spoken about having a resilient economy. Very interesting, because resiliency is connected with Scorpio, economy is Taurus. And another thing too, what I noticed as well, is that he's also stated that he's weighing the taxpayer, which is taxes are Scorpio, and the value of it. Values are connected with Taurus. It's really a perfect blending of his Scorpio sun and Taurus moon. And he's weighing the taxpayer value versus environmental costs. I should say, and the thing about it too is, and also transforming, which is Scorpio, he's about transforming the infrastructure into something that's sustainable, which is sustainable energy can be connected with Taurus. And again, the fact that Sagittarius is rising can be done on a very prodigious scale and done with much vision. And the fact that his moon is in Taurus, I mean, the moon takes on so much significance in his chart, this moon in Taurus, and it's very, of course, could be very calm, stable emotions, which is what I would say we need from a person, especially being a president of the United States. The moon in Taurus, of course, it's in its exaltation, and it's also a singleton in his chart. It's the only planet that is in Earth, and even his ascendant in midheaven. I'm sorry, his midheaven is actually it's in Virgo, which of course is an Earth sign, but the moon in Taurus is still a singleton, and it's the only one in Earth, and it's also the focal point of a Yod configuration in his chart. This moon in Taurus is very important in his chart, and the thing is, and the thing about his Yod in his chart, it also, the Scorpio sun and Sagittarius ascendant are involved in it, and the sun, moon, and ascendant, of course, are the three biggest proponents in one's astrological chart. I found what's interesting about his Yod in his chart is that he has Neptune in it, which of course that sextiles his Scorpio Sun. Um, Sun and Scorpios. The Scorpio energy can be about digging deep. That could be a focus with him, and he's involved in this, very strongly involved in this review of drilling at this time. Neptune can be connected with gas and oil. And the moon being in Taurus, of course, the focal point or apex point of that yod configuration, that can manifest in him as really the focal point in the yod can be connected with monumental achievement, prodigious achievement. Moon in Taurus in the fifth house can be some kind of very strong monetary investment. Maybe something happens as a result of this drilling review, which could be very prosperous for others, and it can maybe increase maybe the investments that are connected with oil and gas. Hold on a moment, people. And the thing is, another thing I noticed in this chart too is that he is also that Biden has one of the rulers of his third house of communications in the seventh house, and that's one of them is Uranus. Now, with Aquarius on the cusp of the third house by itself, it shows that his thinking can be very progressive, futuristic, and innovative. That he's about moving forward. He could have it could be something where having the ruler of the third in the seventh house. This is about, he has a plan that is called something about environmental justice. What's interesting is that Uranus can be connected with the environment. Justice is associated with the seventh house. So very interesting how that pans out. And another thing that I noticed, I'm going to try to get a look at his chart a little better here. Sorry about the people, but another thing too, what I've noticed about his chart is that he has no planets in the first quadrant of his chart. And the first quadrant in astrology is more self-centered, egocentric. It's not considered something. I mean, if with no planets in the first quadrant, it tells me that he likely can't be accused of being overly egocentric or self-centered, or being dominated by self-interest. He can be very strongly tied in with matters connected with others in contrast to himself. Now, another thing I wanted to say, and the date is somewhere, like near mid-May of 2021, is that President Joe Biden is going to have, Joe Biden does, first I want to say Joe Biden does have a T-square configuration in this chart, and it involves his Uranus and Gemini in the sixth house, and Sun in Scorpio is also included in the 12th house. And the apex point, the focal point of it, is that north node in Leo at 29 degrees in the ninth house. Now, when you have a transit that makes an opposition to the focal point of a T-square configuration, often significant events can happen. Now, the thing about this is, first of all, I want to talk about the T-squares in astrology can be indicative of certain tribulation and adversity that one has to overcome. I thought what's interesting in this chart that he has the Sun and Scorpio part. As far as these proponents in his T-square configuration, he has the Sun in Scorpio conjunct Venus in Scorpio, which could be about a focus on connections, relationships that are not superficial, that are very deep, but it opposes the Uranus and Gemini, and Uranus can be connected with friendships, and Gemini being ones that are superficial. Then, of course, when you have the focal point in a T-square, that's that point of over-accentuation, over-compensation. In this case, it's the North Node in Leo in the ninth house, the North Node in Leo. Really, this is where the energy can come in to try to offset overcompensate that opposition to try to reconcile the issues connected to the opposition. And some people may not see the North Node being a point that should be used in a T-square configuration. Could be seen as controversial. I think it couldn't be used because it is an important component in one's natal chart. Now, with the North Node being in Leo in the ninth house, well, that overcompensation can be a lot of extroverted, gregarious energy in ninth house matters with people that are foreigners, and what it does is it can help them form deep connections, and also ones that might be somewhat, superficial or light as well. And the thing about it is too is that he's going to have that again, that transit in mid-May is when this year 2021 is going to be transit Jupiter at 29 degrees Aquarius, which will make the opposition to his North Node in Leo. And when you have transits, when they oppose the focal point of a T-square configuration, often significant events can transpire at this time. And having that Jupiter in Aquarius, I think Joe Biden President Joe Biden needs to be very careful, because it's going to be squaring the Sun in Scorpio, and the Sun, of course, is about life, and it's also can be connected with our vitality and the physical body to some degree. It's also, the Jupiter in Aquarius is also going to be squaring his Uranus, at least a loose square to the Uranus in Gemini in the 6th house of health. Aquarius, Uranus energy, of course, can be connected with nerves and its circulation. The Sun in astrology can be associated with the heart, and it can also be connected to the spine and the upper back. When you have transit Jupiter squaring, at least in this case a loose square, to your natal Sun, when that happens, that could manifest in overdoing it, exerting more energy is necessary. It can be an aspect of overexertion, using too much energy, and it could lead to health-related situations, debilitations. So Sun in Scorpio could have very relentless energy, very obsessive and fixated, and he doesn't, could be a time where he may have a greater propensity to overdo it, and it'll also be opposing with the North Node in Leo. And the fact that it's making that opposition, it might oppose what he needs to do in terms of going to other countries, expressing the gregarious Leo energy, and going to other countries in his foreign travel. So, and again, this could be a very important time in Joe Biden's life when he does have this transit. Remember, the Leo is also connected with the heart, so I think it's a very important time when we're looking at this, that as far as health-related issues, especially with Joe Biden. And remember that, on the positive side, when you have transit Jupiter in Aquarius and at the 29 degrees, which I see is the full culmination of the sign, is that when I look at that, that's also enlarged, being in this third house, enlarged innovative communications at this time. But it will have a lot of negative aspects, and it's also going to be conjoining his natal South Node. So it can be a time where he might have South Node in transit, in conjunctions, can be about what we're going away from. So I don't know if he has, maybe for some reason he has to go away from that kind of thinking at this time. But the thing about it is that we're going to find out as time progresses, of course, no pun intended, progression being connected with Aquarius. So I just, that's pretty much what I want to get at as far as his natal chart goes. Well, anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying, stay